Good morning and welcome to the JCPS Digital Learning Channel. Today we're going to be looking at Extreme Weather in Minecraft Education Edition with Rebecca Ferguson and myself, Jim Unger from JCPS Digital Innovation. This is going to be dealing with a science lesson and how we can produce some backpack artifacts or summative assessments where we can see how well students understand extreme weather. As we look at this, we like to use our blender for looking at blended content, and this right here is going to fall under this last section of Backpack Artifact Summative Assessment, seeing what students know, how are they looking at that standards and understanding them. With this lesson, we also like to look through the SAMR model, meaning is it substitution of a lesson, augmentation, modification, or redefinition. And as you'll see, our handy pickaxe up here is marking we are at R for redefinition. Technology allows for the creation of a new task previously inconceivable. In this case, dealing with extreme weather and modeling such. So our next generation science standards we're looking at are 5 ESS 2-1, that's our 5th grade. Develop a model using an example to describe ways the geosphere, biosphere, hydrosphere, and/or atmosphere interact. And ESS 2.c, the rules of water in Earth's surface processes. And under our new Kentucky Academic Standards for Technology, this fits under ID1. Use a variety of technologies to identify and solve authentic real-world problems. In the indicators for grades 3 through 5, it hits number 1, demonstrate perseverance when working with authentic, open-ended problems. The wonderful Miss Rebecca Ferguson and her 4th and 5th grade students working with science, extreme weather, and obviously Minecraft and education. How are you doing today, Rebecca?
Doing great. A very dangerous place around the coast whenever we have that. So what they are is they are low pressure systems with an organized thunderstorm activity, but they only form over tropical or subtropical water. So we have low pressure systems, which...
So here we were just looking at, this is the beginning of class, and can you hear yourself?
I can all the time when we have thunderstorms. But the difference with hurricanes is they form over tropical and subtropical waters, and they also rotate in, just like if you look at this picture, they rotate in a circular motion. Now, something interesting is depending on where the storm's located in the earth is depending on if it goes counterclockwise or if it goes clockwise. So if it's in the northern hemisphere, then it turns counterclockwise, and in the southern hemisphere, it turns clockwise. So that's interesting based on where it is in the world.
That also applies with tornadoes.
Yeah, and they can have tornadoes, and tornadoes, they move in the circular motion too, but tornadoes, that's wind that's in a circular motion. So when we're looking at hurricanes, this is actually the storm, and the winds are keeping it going in that circular. But there's rain in there. There is, they'll have hail. They can spin off tornadoes because they're creating that rotation already. But one of the biggest things is the flooding, okay? Well, that goes here. But flooding. So think about that. The flooding that comes with hurricanes.
And this was the first time we were in. This was our first day. So we had met, we did our planning through our planning document. And then we came back the first day with the kiddos, and we did this where we were just front loading using your slides. And it was really just talking about all the science and the weather of it before we even got to the Minecraft.
And there's weather balloons. They send crafts that like fly into the storm that have equipment on them that measures the different things. So they track with these instruments the speeds, they track what direction they're moving, how strong they are. But one of the most important things that they're tracking too is the location. So that's how they know who needs to prepare and where this storm's going to hit, okay, to protect the people. So something that they can do with these instruments and the tracking is they use latitude and longitude. So we know about latitude and longitude, right? So the degrees. And they track how fast and how strong it is. So then they can tell if a hurricane, if you see here, if it's getting stronger or it's getting weaker, because you can see here as it's moving, now it's strengthening until it gets to this 140 point here with the wind at 140 knots. And then it starts to weaken. So then they know that the hurricane is weakening. And they can tell you that as it's moving into land, it's gaining strength, or as it's moving into the land, it's getting weaker. So we know what to do to prepare. Is everybody good? All right. So also with the tracking, we have different types of maps that we look at that show you where it's expected to hit and what strength it's going to be. So when we look at this hurricane that's going over Haiti and it's going towards Florida, we see it was a Category 4, and here's the map. So that means that it has sustained winds of 130 to 156 miles per hour. That is very strong. And then we see it starts to weaken before it makes landfall right here. And then it goes up the coast because this hurricane, it gets its energy from the warm waters and it travels over water. So then it kind of keeps that path along the coast. Sometimes though, if it makes a direct hit into the land, you see in this top map, then it can keep traveling, but travel over land and it'll break up and we'll just get a lot of water and wind and thunderstorms on land. But it starts to lose its energy because it's not getting that energy from the warm ocean water where it formed, okay? Now, so the National Weather Service, they consider a Category 3 and above to be a major storm. This means that it can cause catastrophic damage and loss of life. So it's a very bad thing. So people that are living on the coast, they have to be able to prepare for that. If a Category 3 or above storm's coming in, you got to prepare. And as I was saying before, one of the most dangerous things from a hurricane is storm surge. Does anybody know what storm surge is? Where we live in the United States, because we're not in a coastal area, it's not going to be something, that we talk about when a storm's coming in or something like that. But when you're talking about hurricanes, it's something that is very, very important, okay? Now, what storm surge is this is when you have that wind and that water coming in, then that wind is pushing the water in as it's moving. And when you're talking about 150 mile per hour winds, that's got a lot of force, right? So it starts pushing this water as it comes in and approaches the land, and it creates a storm surge, which is basically really big waves coming in with the storm. And here's some real life pictures of some flooding that came from hurricanes. So you can see these homes completely destroyed. And that looks like it could have been from the wind, but also the tornadoes that come out of hurricanes. Because even if you're not right on the coast and have to worry about the storm surge, you still have those really strong winds, and there's the potential for tornadoes to come off and lots of things.
Yeah, here I think it was important too, them seeing the real life pictures and that storm surge of how high those waves actually can come on the buildings. That's pretty insane to me.
It can be catastrophic for a town and take a really long time to repair and come back from a really big hurricane. Has anyone ever been to any coastal towns after hurricanes or seen anything like that?
I'm sure they've probably seen it before on TV and other videos,
Yeah.
but it's good for them to see it again, just to keep it fresh in their mind, what they're going to be dealing with in the model that they're going to create.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And what can happen to the structures.
Your slideshows are just great.
Now, there are some ways, and this is really important for you to pay attention to. to prepare for the flooding to try to minimize damage.
I really liked this part too, where you got to come in. Once again, you just had great pictures showing some of the different, from very basic with sandbags up to the tide walls out in like the Bay Area, where they can block off the water. They're just such great designs you found. The little door pictures, really good.
Yeah, because I thought that this, showed like different materials, like this one with just using like the bigger ones with the air to surround like the entire building, but then like the sandbags, because the kind of material that they were going to have within the game. And like we talked about when we were in the session, that these walls, they're going to protect a lot better. And of course, these little doors, they're going to protect a lot better. But with the constraints of only having 36 hours, that would be something that we wouldn't be able to do in real life, but something to think about in the future for preparing for those things.
So remember last week, when we were building the structures of the houses, and we built the foundation and then we built the walls, houses can actually be blown off of their foundations, like completely destroyed. Now, so whenever you know that a lot of water is coming in, when we're preparing for hurricanes, because a lot of times the National Weather Service, they're tracking these storms, so they can tell you in advance that this storm's coming in and you're able to prepare. So some of the things that people do, if you look at these images, there are different ways that cities will prepare for this water to try to minimize the damage. So you see they're putting things around their houses to block the water. Some cities that get a lot of flooding and a lot of storm surge, they'll actually construct walls, flood walls, or levees to help, because it happens a lot. A lot of businesses, they'll put halfway doors up and on their homes so that blocks the water, and they can easily, close the doors, lock them up when they're preparing for these storms. And then a lot of places will put sandbags, or they can put plastic. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, like the house that's white, those bags have sand, because it's pretty easy to just get a plastic bag, fill it with sand, put it down, and then it's heavy, but then also the water can't get through, and it's just an easy material for people to get very quickly. Now, some that plan, like this big tube at the bottom right, that big black tube, that's actually a tube that they stretch out, and then they fill it with water. So they fill it with water to block other water.
Mm-hmm.
So now here, this was getting into where we were actually doing what's their build. What is your task in the world? Because now we've got front loading, refreshing those ideas. What is the science here? Now, what are we going to ask you to do? And that's where this task came about that, you and I worked together on.
The National Weather Service has issued a hurricane warning for our Minecraft coastal town. We have 36 hours to prepare for a Category 3 hurricane to make landfall. Now, the mayor contacted you and asked you to design and build some type of structures to protect the most at-risk buildings in our town from flooding and storm surge. The storm surge is expected to be between 10 to 12 foot high. So think about that when you're designing what you're going to use, how you're going to build it. It's going to be 10 to 12 foot high at the coast of the storm surge. So we're going to take a look at the map on the next slide and the expected path of the hurricane, and decide when, where, and what materials you're going to use to plan to protect the building. So this is our Minecraft town. Here's our village here. This is the village that you're protecting. Now, ooh, look at that. He's pushing in the hurricane. It's coming in.
They kind of had the taste with, the theme of the slide set in that, which builds their engagement. Then they really start to dig in when they see this and they go, oh, this is actually the world. This is where we got the pictures from.
Yeah, and then they had to take, you know, what they had learned and use that information where, or what part of the village are they trying to protect? How, like, what direction is it coming in from? What's right there? And I think seeing it from above, even though in Minecraft they can go up too, seeing it from above like that, they can really like plan what's coming in, see what's around it, like higher areas, lower areas, because I know that was something they talked about a lot, was that this low area, you know, we don't need to do anything here. We do need to do that here. They were taking that into consideration when they were building too. I thought that was really good.
So this is a Category 3 hurricane coming in, and it's expected to make landfall right here. So if we look at our village that we're protecting here, you need to think about if it's making landfall right here, and there's going to be a storm surge, lots of wind, lots of water, what buildings do you think would be most at risk to be damaged? And then you're going to have a certain kinds and amounts of materials to use to build the protection that you need for your village.
Such good questions and design thought. As soon as they, like you said, as soon as they saw it, they started going, okay, well, I can do this, I can do that. Well, what about this? And then they would ask, you know, further questions on it. It's just the way they start thinking. That is great for science. I mean, for anything, obviously, but for science and engineering principles, they really start digging into it real quick.
Yeah, because even things that we didn't really talk about, with how they said that they were going to dig a hole and just dig a hole straight down, because then that would just take the water in. That wasn't really, you know, something we did. Like, there was some things with like catching the water, but not like, I'm going to dig a hole and the water will go in there and then it's not going to get to my village, you know. So they were definitely thinking on their own and not just taking what was given to them and, you know, doing it. They were definitely thinking.
So what you are going to do, and we actually have a world for you that is built, and Mr. Unger was going to talk about, I think, some of the rules about not changing it from survival or not, you know, changing things, because you're going to have certain materials that you can use. So when we do share the world with you all, I know that you all know how to import worlds. We've done that. So you can download them, you can import them. We've done that several times. And then it's going to be in View Your Worlds. But some of the really important stuff, just like when we did the math worlds, you need to make sure that you read all the signs so that you know what your tasks are. There's important information on those signs.
And for me, this is like the importance of your slides, because you go through and you step by step walk them through what they need to click on, what to do, even though they've done it typically several times at this point, 'cause this is later in the school year. I can still walk them through what to hit, what to click on, so there's no confusion when they go in. So handy.
Yeah, I found it to be easier to like be very clear the first time rather than having to do it like 50 times. And so I try to do that so it's like right there, and that they can look back on their own when they need to, because I post these in like our Google Classroom and everything, so they can look on their own also and go through it.
And just like our building homes world that we did the last couple times, you need to go and see the people because they have some information for you. And in this case, this man that you're going to see is an emergency supply personnel. So he's a person that's in charge of the emergency supplies that you will need. He'll give you the materials that you are going to have. And if you need more, you have to go back and see him. We can't just auto-populate what we need and have unlimited, because you don't have unlimited in the real world. If you're actually preparing for something, everybody's going to be trying to prepare.
And he has a good selection of materials there. You'll see there's wood, concrete, there's some sand, some glass, iron bars, and then there's cake if you get hungry. But every time you talk to him, he's going to give you those exact amounts you see down there, 50, 50, 30, 20, 20, 20, 10. And if you talk to him again, it'll just overwrite that, whether you've used it or not. It'll never go above that. Now, if you go out and build and use all the wood up, you'll have 50-50, maybe 0 on the wood, then 20-20. When you come back to him, he will fill up your wood or whatever material you used. But he'll never go over what's there. So you can't keep talking to him to try and get a whole bunch.
Okay. But you can see on the map what it's going to look like.
Yeah, Ms. Ferguson did a really good job. Both the maps, right? The nice one and then the one up in the clouds, that's actually right from the world we put together for you guys.
That is so hard to build because that is not flat.
Well, you have to think about that.
Yes.
What are you going to do if it's not flat? So you can't have just put a wall right down. So what do you have to do?
Maybe that makes it easier, though. Which ones are you going to be more worried about? The ones down low or the ones up high?
Well, remember, we're not going to be in the same world, but what you're going to do is you're downloading the world and then importing it into your Minecraft.
Okay.
You remember how to do that?
Yes.
Yeah, once you click on it, it should show up in your Google Drive. Then all you do is you log into Minecraft, go to your settings and hit import, and then you should be able to import it, and then it'll show up in your library or my worlds.
Yeah, I also think the signs, I love like that ability to have like the NPC, is it NPC?
Yep.
The NPC and the signs to be able to give directions. And then after you taught me how I could protect it, that's very helpful because we would have a lot of time when they would accidentally break the directions and, the sign mine instead.
So easy to accidentally mine something that you didn't want to and go, oh no, I just took, 5 minutes for me to think about my paragraph and write this whole sign up because, we did that sign and got it back there with the instructions. Once again, that's the same from the slide set, but it'd be very easy to accidentally hit that and it'd be gone. Yeah, that would be protected in the world. And then I really like, because the one part we get to is where I had the NPC, the non-player character here for emergency supplies that gives them the building materials, where the one student took and actually built a structure around him to protect him from the storm.
Yes.
I never even thought about that. I put this poor guy out here and then he built around him. It was just like, oh my goodness, that was it just shows that level of thinking they have that you don't expect.
Yeah, and like the empathy and compassion that they're like thinking about it in terms of like real life, like really taking their task seriously, that they're going to protect this man because that's what they would actually do. Yeah, there was a lot of good conversations, especially and things that I didn't even think of, like protecting the garden because the food that would, we told them to pay attention to protecting the structures, but they were actually thinking about survival and like, well, I wanted to protect my food because I wouldn't be able to eat, So I thought that was great. And the animals, so they protected their animals. And that was like on top, because we were the structure, worry about the structures. And they went above and beyond what was asked of them.
And the one thing I think that I always watch for when I'm doing a lesson with someone or coming to visit somebody's room and they're using Minecraft is to see we have those intentions. We have those things that we want them to think about, but then they always go further. And I'm like, so what do they pull in? Like this right here, I just paused on this one part where we had given the students and what the NPC does, and every student that opens the world has exactly the same thing. When they talk to him, he gives them the supplies. And we ask the students to stay in survival, not to go to creative, because then you can get anything you want in the Minecraft world. But this student was like, okay, so he saw the limitations, and I didn't even think about it. He started crafting with the items that were in there because I didn't make that a rule. And it's, they follow the rules, but they also know what was not in the rules. Which, And like we said, absolutely. Now that you thought of that, have at it and go with it. Smarter, not harder. It's such amazing things the way they think.
Definitely. Because he did. He, worked around what he had, the constraints that he had. And that is what we want kids to do. Like the whole engineering design process, you want to make improvements, reflect on things, use the tools you have.
And even further, he wasn't doing anything to like, oh, I'm going to make this other material that's really cool and I can make an ender portal. No, he was making tools to work with, just because it does take a while if you don't have a pickaxe to break a block.
Yeah.
So creating tools just to make the work a little bit faster. It was just brilliant.
Yeah, it was like relevant to what we were doing, not just playing.
Exactly.
So it's actually engaged and on task. And
we talked about the advantages, disadvantages of some of the materials with glass blocks versus iron bars that we can see a little bit. And then, when we'd say something about iron bars, they always came back and said, well, that's there. So if water does get in, it can go back out. And we're like, oh, didn't think of that. So it's just great to get them to explore that thinking and have them talk it out.
Yeah. And then even when we kind of experimented there with how he had was it the glass?
Mm-hmm.
Or it was the bars and then the glass of what happened. So experimenting with the different materials while we are working to kind of say, would it work like this? And going back.
Yeah, we found that water would flow through the iron bars, but not through the glass, and just kind of set up that little experiment just to see trial and error with water. This is where they were protecting the garden, protecting the animals, but then the one student also built a storm shelter to protect the people when the storm came. We're like, okay, not within 36 hours, but once again, he's like, well, I got my border done and my security up for the water. What else can I do? And then he was like, okay, I want to protect the people. Just such good thinking and creativity, which is what we want to foster, especially in our elementary kiddos, but any kid. Just great to see those ideas develop. Also, what we found is as the students built and they were doing their summative, which included them taking either screenshots and adding them to slides, or taking and doing their book and quill and exporting that as a PDF. We wanted to move and take those and make those into backpack artifacts. Now, if you have questions about doing the screen captures or the book and quill, we have videos for that in more places on the Digital Learning Channel. I highly recommend checking those out. But usually the biggest thing is then how do I get those and turn those into the backpack? And once again, I have to go to these excellent slides from Ms. Ferguson. How for the students to take, because we know that in the game world, you can take screenshots, you can record your screen, whether it's on a Chromebook, an iPad, a Windows device. You can take your book and quill with the camera and you can export that as a PDF. But so once the students have those files, what do they do with them? How are we going to showcase this? And this is where the backpack comes in. And then this part of the video here walks through what we're doing with the backpack. And again, these are your student-friendly slides you've put together. It's still got that whole same theme going on, and it walks them through what to click, where, and the order to go in. And I really liked, I didn't do a lot on it because I don't want to give too much away out of your things, but as we move down, you actually talk about what are the different 5 backpack skills, because, we're over a couple of years into this, and I still get people asking me, well, what is an effective collaborator? Or communicator, and what are the things that would represent that? So you have little identifiers in student-friendly language to help them.
Yeah, I found that especially with like the writing, the reflections, because they don't really know what to do with that space. Like the way it's labeled, describe the learning experiences that led up to this artifact. A lot of kids are like, what? So when it's like, okay, what were we learning in class? What was the assignment that was given? What kind of activities did we do? And then that makes it, more where they can understand, but then aligning it to the actual success skill, giving those like sentence starters and sentence stems like that helps them to think about what it is. Yeah, because it's hard sometimes for adults, like, to reflect and teaching students to reflect. We have to teach them to do something like that. It's not something that just comes naturally. So it's thinking about that.
And she goes through with the kids, and you can see them here. Step 1 from the Clever portal under JCPS resources. Click on the icon JCPS backpack. So it takes them right into Clever, walks them through step by step. And I know you're liking these slides. They're also attached down below this video in the resources. So check that out in information down there. And we can see it walks through, going to Google Drive, adding it in there, selecting it, the buttons you need to hit, how to pick it. But, Rebecca even goes further and shows us, the students, how to go through, what to put in for, what does this orange box mean? Can what should I do to describe this artifact? And then how did this learning experience impact your success skill? And she describes that for the students, once again, in that student-friendly language. That's very nice. And even further in there, and I'm not going to go through all these, but she breaks down what are all of those backpack success skills. All 5 of them are broken down as you go through this. So check that resource out, because now the students have done the work. They've shown their learning. Now we can take it and pop it into that backpack. Outstanding. For so long, we've just been the masters of content. We are the masters of everything that's going on. When a teacher sees this and they're like, well, I don't know. I'm like, I've been working with this for 3 years. I have not even close to knowing everything that's in there. Every time I watch students in here or my son, I learn something new. And my 10-year-old is my expert. When I'm building and I'm like, I don't know how to do this, I get my 5th grader to come help me. So, I have to tell teachers, you're not going to know it all. If you know how to get them in there, and I guarantee most of your students probably know how and can help you to know how, just let them be. And the students get so much from that ownership of knowledge. They love showing it then, because they're like, yeah, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. That's how, I learn stuff from the kids all the time. And they, come and they're like, I watched this on YouTube and learned this, stuff that I didn't even know you could do. And then we just share out. And I feel like that then, and whenever I tell them like, oh, I don't know all this stuff, you're teaching me, I also feel like it makes it seem it's like a level playing field. You're not teaching at them, you're learning together. And that is, I feel like the students are going to take more from that than just, that I'm telling them things. And I think that sometimes teachers, get worried to not, know everything, or feel like that it's going to make them look like they don't know things. But I've never felt like a student has judged me for not knowing about Minecraft. If it was some addition or something, they might be like, oh, you should know that. But when they think that you're playing, they're not putting as much pressure on you as you're putting on you. And so definitely.
Ms. Ferguson, I really want to thank you for collaborating with me, letting me come into your classroom and work with the Minecraft to see how it is you're applying it and kind of team build this weather lesson in Minecraft. So I appreciate your time and having me.
Yeah, no problem. It was fun to have in someone else, because like I said, I learned from you how to protect the signs, things that I didn't know yet. So it was great, because then I learned, you learned, and the kids like to have an audience. That's what they kind of, they were excited that you were there, because then they were getting to show what they had done. So it was fun. Thank you very much.